Guys, what's going on? Welcome to Serial at Midnight, the official YouTube channel of serialatmidnight.com. My name is Heath, and I'm glad you're here because in this video, we're going to be talking about this massive tome, this grimoire of forbidden knowledge. This is Dungeons & Dragons Art and Arcana, Art and Text Arcana, a visual history. This is written by 4 authors. We have Michael Witwer, Kyle Newman, Jon Peterson, Sam Witwer. Those names hopefully mean something to you. Michael and Sam are brothers. Sam is the voice of Darth Maul on Star Wars The Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels. Now on the big screen, Darth Maul back in the Star Wars universe and voiced by Sam Witwer. Kyle Newman is the director of the film Fanboys. And Jon Peterson is kind of a guru of this sort of thing. So, high pedigree for this book. But, so I bought this. This is not a freebie or a comp copy or anything like that. I paid for this with my own money. I had to have it, honestly. I have this weird longing for Dungeons & Dragons that is difficult to explain. Actually, you know, it's probably not difficult to explain. I grew up in the 80s in a very religious household. It was during the Satanic Panic. And I specifically remember my church talking about Dungeons & Dragons and the harm that it was causing to America's youth, maybe youth worldwide. Apparently kids were playing Dungeons & Dragons, being possessed and committing suicide. And so Dungeons & Dragons, it's hard to say that without sounding like you're absolutely smashed. Dungeons & Dragons, a game, tabletop, role-playing game. Obviously, you guys know what Dungeons & Dragons is, but it was always kind of this forbidden fruit for me, and so I will probably always be chasing things like this. I love the universe. I love the role-playing game genre, the format. Here's the thing, I have not played a ton of Dungeons & Dragons, because it's just one of those things, like the older you get, the harder it is to do things like this. I have played some, but my big entree into the world of Dungeons & Dragons was, I have all the cartoon, I have, the entire series of the cartoon on DVD, but it was the books and the video games, the Forgotten Realms video games, the novels, the R.A. Salvatore books. Oh, you guys, Drizzt, the Dark Elf, love all that stuff, but this book is really, it says it's a visual history, and that is true. It is a visual history, but it's also a textual history as well, because this thing it's really loaded with the text that is the history of Dungeons & Dragons. So it's divided into different categories. It's got the story, which tells the history, the story of Dungeons & Dragons. It's got the archaeology, which is archaeology of art, where they dig out all the art. I mean, I don't know if every piece of Dungeons & Dragons art is represented in this book, but I would not be surprised if that was the case. There is so much art in here, going back to early pencil sketches by Gary Gygax and all the people that were there at Ground Zero when this whole thing first got started. They go to the roots of Dungeons & Dragons. Artist favorites, deadliest dungeons, evolution, which is really cool. The many faces of Sundry lore. So something that they do in this book is they'll show you how certain characters, how the monsters evolve from edition to edition, and how a monster from 1976, say, might have looked in 2014, just how they have progressed. So very cool stuff there. It also, I mentioned the Satanic Panic and the controversy around that. That's absolutely covered in this book. I don't think there's a stone left unturned in this book. There was a little boy that was missing, and it just ignited fear in the entire nation about Dungeons & Dragons. But everything, you guys, maps, dungeon lore, the backgrounds for where this stuff came from, covers of the video games. So while it is the art, they have not skimped on the Arcana as well, because it is so packed with, as I said in the top of the video, forbidden history. It's not forbidden, but it's a story that hasn't really been told visually in this fashion. I think this book probably represents the most exhaustive look at Dungeons and Dragons using the art. The story's been told. There are books about Gary Gygax. We all know what Dungeons and Dragons is, but the visual history accompanied by all the comic book covers and the novel covers, and like where those novels came from and how they were developed by the authors themselves. I don't know that that's all been put into one volume. So this does end up being kind of the Dungeons and Dragons one-stop shop for what it is, where it came from, where it's going. It is so cool. Super nerdy, and I mean that in the best possible way. It's the highest compliment I can pay it. Is this book is super nerdy. This ain't a book for armchair Dungeons and Dragons fans. This is a book that's really boots on the ground, dice in hand. It's so cool. And what you learn, what I've learned, obviously I have not read this book cover to cover. It just came out recently, and I am slowly working my way through it. But the famous people that love Dungeons and Dragons. There's a picture in here of Peter Cushing painting, Peter Cushing, the legendary horror actor from Hammer, from Star Wars, you may fire when ready, Grand Moff Tarkin, painting miniatures for his wargaming. He was a tabletop wargamer, Peter Cushing, you guys. So this stuff runs deep. This stuff runs back a long way. This is not new, but Dungeons and Dragons as a brand maybe has never been as relevant or as beloved as it seems to be right now. There's a whole resurgence of this. I was at Target this weekend, and they had a Dungeons and Dragons starter set, and that's just really cool. You don't have to go to a specialty shop, to a gaming shop. Target has Dungeons and Dragons starter set, everything you need, character creation sheet, the dice, super cool. So that's really what I have for you guys in this video. It's just a quick product review. I am a big fan of this book. I have to say, I was made aware of it by, there's a podcast that I listen to called the Techno Retro Dads, kind of loosely affiliated with Rebel Force Radio, the grandfathers of Star Wars podcasting. And Techno Retro Dads are two dads, as you can tell by their name, who are very OG 70s and 80s geeks. Again, a compliment, not an insult, a compliment. They were there for Tron, they were there for Atari, all that stuff. And so, that's the sort of thing you expect from their podcast, is lots of dad jokes, lots of, it's a retro themed podcast. But again, that's a compliment. And so if that's the sort of thing you're interested in, they have a great podcast, but they had Michael Witwer on to talk about the book, and just kind of wax nostalgic about Dungeons and Dragons, and to also talk about how the book came to be, the origins of the book, the stuff behind the scenes with Wizards of the Coast. Very, very interesting stuff. How they got people involved, how they got the art, where the art came from. So that's it, guys. I want to thank you for checking this out. What do you think about D&D? What's your character's name? How long have you been playing? Things like that. Let's talk about things like that. Let's embrace some Dungeons and Dragons. But guys, thank you so much. I hope this video finds you well. I appreciate you, and I will catch you later.